wide to Wingardie. Have a look. Shot for Candy. Not once, but twice. And then bang.
Tries one on Carlo. Gets some good assistance. But he's still going. But he's still going. He's unstoppable.
Boat burns it beautifully. Now they're starting to run. And away goes White.
No support.
Takes it under his arm. Have another bounce. And he does.
Great chase,
He just puts the foot on the accelerator. He draws away. What a magnificent run. Can he cap it off with a goal? Yes, he can. One of the goals of the year. The goal of the year.
Welcome to the drop punt tutorial by Mohamed, Saad and Chris Pollard. The drop punt kick is the most utilised skill in Australian rules football, commonly known as AFL. It involves the backspin of the ball upon contact with the foot, and it is the most accurate type of kicking technique out of all those used in the game. The following presentation will provide you with the skills needed to execute the drop punt kick in 5 weeks. A typical drop punt kick involves 5 distinct phases. The first is the approach, then the backswing, the transition, the forward swing, and lastly, the follow through. In order to execute the skill, it must be preceded with a walk or running motion. Following on from the approach phase, the leg goes into a position of knee flexion and hip extension to prepare for forward propulsion of the leg to contact with the ball. This commences once the opposing foot heel strikes with the ground. The ball is then being held over the kicking leg and released at this time. The transitional phase begins when the thigh and shank start to rotate counterclockwise towards the ball. Once contact with the ball has been made, the ankle should be plantar flexed and the knee starts to begin to extend. Contact between the foot and the ball occurs at around 30 to 50% of knee flexion. The follow through occurs after ball contact. The knee continues to extend and the hip is in a position of flexion. This stage is finished when the knee begins to flex. There are 2 ways in which a football kick can be classified, either one-dimensionally or two-dimensionally. From a one-dimensional perspective, it involves mainly gross muscles as this skill requires one to use large musculature when performing the skill. The drop punt kick is more of a discrete skill than it is a continuous one. This is because the kick has a specific beginning and end point. Lastly, the drop punt kick is also classified as an open skill rather than a closed one, because when in a game scenario, there are external variables which influence the way this skill is to be executed. From a two-dimensional perspective, this skill is classified as 4D according to Gentile's taxonomy. It is regarded as the most difficult skill to perform.
There are a number of key aspects that encompass the AFL drop punt kick, which are shown in the diagram presented. The following video will have the key aspects demonstrated by VFL head coach Dale Tappan.
So, ball balanced in your hand. Okay, really important to get your feet set. Okay, your feet have got to be set. There's got to be rhythm in your kick. Okay, ball drop is important. Okay, and firm foot. So a nice firm foot to kick through the ball. Have your guiding hand in control of the ball. Have good rhythm and balance with your kick. Ball drop below the short line and firm foot on contact. So that's probably a better one. The ball drop below the short line. You're not dropping the ball too high.
Beautiful.
Measurement of performance will be done, so the learner has a score they can strive towards bettering post-test. It will also allow us as coaches to monitor the learner's progress throughout their program. Quantitatively, we will measure the performer's ability to kick a goal from 5 different positions, and the scores will be calculated via the AFL scoring system. There will be 3 shots at each of the 5 positions, and a total score will be tailored after all 15 shots are completed. Qualitatively, we will assess the learner's ability to perform the key aspects of the skill, which we'll discuss earlier in the presentation. Each of the skills will be marked out of a score of 5, with 1 being very poor and 5 being excellent. These will be tallied up as a total score at the end of the session. According to Fitz, there are 3 stages of learning that we experience when performing a new task. Firstly, we have the cognitive stage, in which the performer is trying to grasp the idea of the skill itself. It is fraught with many errors and is heavily reliant on feedback from a number of different sources. Secondly, we have the associative stage, and when one reaches this stage, there is more emphasis placed upon modification and adaptation of the skill. Lastly, we have the autonomous stage, and this stage is as its name suggests. The learner is able to execute the skill with little to no conscious effort at all. This in turn means that they can direct their attention to other aspects of their performance. After the 6-week training period, we expect the performer to have gone from a cognitive learning stage to an associative learning stage. A retention test, involving the exact same protocol as the goal kicking test mentioned previous, will be administered 48 hours after the learner has finished their post-training test. This time period will involve no feedback to assess their ability to retain information regarding performance of the skill. A transfer test will be done by having the exact same protocol again, but with the regulatory conditions altered, in which an opponent will stand on the mark and act as a distraction, just like in a game-style situation.
Previous abilities one may acquire through other physical pursuits can sometimes hinder or enhance the learning of a new skill. This is also known as transfer of learning. Therefore, a coach should have an understanding of the learner's previous sporting qualities when they are going about developing a skills training program. It is important for the demonstrator to perform the skill correctly to enable the novice to have the correct movement patterns for the skill. The demonstrator must show examples of the skill being performed by previous novices to discourage the emphasis of imitating the skill by elite performers. This will also help facilitate the novice in problem-solving tasks. Demonstrations should also be performed prior to the commencement of practice. Verbal cues and instructions will be directed via augmented feedback. This is feedback that is given to enhance intrinsic information that is already made apparent to the individual, and it will be directed specifically at the previously mentioned key aspects of the skill. The cues will be concise and to the point, and only used sparingly via a faded feedback mechanism to allow the learner to make their own corrections, rather than relying upon feedback avoiding the guidance hypothesis. This states that when one is provided with too much external feedback, they become reliant on this, and once presented with a situation where external feedback isn't available, their performance suffers. Frequent sessions rather than longer sessions are more beneficial to performance, although mass practice has been shown to be optimal for discrete skills such as a drop punt kick. Therefore, in our 5-week training program, we will have a combination of both types. As the AFL drop punt kick is mainly a gross motor skill, the whole practice method is more applicable for this skill to be executed in. We will incorporate, however, part practice attention strategies into our whole practice of the skill. This involves performing the skill in its entirety by having the learner focus their attention to particular parts of the skill. The novice will be provided with feedback after well-executed trials, not those trials that were performed poorly. Providing the learner with positive normative feedback will also be used, meaning we give information regarding the scores of people who are of like skill level to the learner, but only if the learner is ahead of them at this stage. Self-control practice will also be enhanced in the training program for the novice. This will have the learner decide when they would like to receive feedback and what order they would like the trials to be in.
You don't have my love.
I'm a loser.